Hariom, my name is Arjun Gopal, and I am one of the chicks in the Dallas area. Today, we are happy to celebrate 50 years of Global Chick. We welcome you to this Gita live session. Today, I'm glad to be joined by Brahmachari Hariji. So I'm going to pass it to him for a few words.
Thank you so much, Arjun. So, first of all, a warm welcome to everyone from the United States and around the world. This is a beautiful initiative. On behalf of Global Chick, I'd like to thank everyone for attending, and I'd like to thank the Global Chick leadership for having Chick Dallas do this event today. So it's called Gita Alive, where we try to make the Gita practical to chicks based on things chicks are going through. So I understand Arjun has some questions for us today, and it's going to be a fun dialogue, and we'll get to your questions in the last 20 minutes as well. So Arjun, you're running the show. It's your show. Go ahead.
All right. So, sadhana, being the topic of today, means spiritual practice. So, today's topic is the importance of sadhana. So, does that mean that it's being neglected?
Good question. So starting off, what do we mean by spiritual practice in the first place? For that to be known, we have to look at the goal first, where the absolute goal that we strive for in Sanatana Dharma is moksha, liberation. The moment I say I need liberation, I'm assuming that I am bound. That's what liberation means. When that's the case, what am I bound by? Quite clearly, I am bound because I think I am this body, this mind, this intellect. In a nutshell, that's the binding that I have around me. Now, how can I grow out of that? Simply by realizing what my true nature is. Simply put, that's all it takes. It happens through knowledge. Even the Upanishad says, Jnanat evatu kaivalyam, is what it says. However, one precursor to that, to get to that state of perfection, is I need chitta shuddhi. A purified mind is the only way that I'm able to ascertain this knowledge to become liberated. The purified mind is something I don't have right now. What is the mala or impurity in my mind right now? It is my strong likes and dislikes. That's something I've been harboring for lives and lives now, and those vasanas have compounded so much. I find myself in this body, mind, and intellect as this bundle of vasanas right here. Therefore, to grow out of that, sadhanas are what sand down my likes and dislikes. These are those spiritual practices. Now, where do they even come from then? It's great that we're looking at Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Because if you look at the 16th, 17th, 18th chapters of Gita, they exhaustively go through various spiritual practices that are taken up to really control this mind and make sure that I'm the controller of my mind, not my mind controlling what I do. In a nutshell, that's what it is. Now, if we look at traditional sadhana, when I say sadhana, what comes to your mind? Let me ask the chick here. Just when I say the word.
I think of practices like meditation, maybe yoga,
Mhm.
just relaxing.
Relaxing that way. Well, in a Vedantic sense, then, if we look at Upadesha Sada, for example, a beautiful text by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi, there's one quote that he has in there about sadhana: Pujanam japas chintanam kramat. Puja, japa, chintana. He gives a certain order. In that, when it comes to a spiritual practice, connection with that divine, which is my true identity, puja starts with all five of my senses are honed in on that activity. It's very physical. People give it a negative connotation saying it's mechanical, but we should see it as physical. Where in a puja, your eyes are attracted to that beautiful alankara and decoration of Bhagwan. Your ears are stimulated because the chanting, ringing of the bell, all of this is to do with the ears. Even sense of touch, when you put that cool chandan on Bhagavan, offer milk or water as abhisheka. These are all steps that inculcate and use and imbibe that body, plus even smell, agrabatti. The moment you smell agarbatti anywhere, your mind goes to temple. That connotation is built in so much. Plus, even the sense of taste. What's the best part of a puja?
Prasad.
Prasada at the end. Even that is a form of worship there where my mind is on that Bhagavan. That's the point of a sadhana. When that physical calmness is there, then my mind can go to japa as a sadhana, which is more difficult to do. Repetition of Bhagavan's name. where it's not that I'm visualizing something here, it is simply that repetition of Bhagavan's name. That is also a purifier. Once I'm able to do that as well, Chintanam. Chintanam is that dhyana or meditative aspect where I focus on that form of that Ishvara, Leela or Charitra story of that Bhagavan. Those are the saguna, meaning Bhagavan with attributes, the way I do the sadhana and worship. These are all ways consistently done, purifies this inner instrument really well.
Then can sadhana itself be goal-oriented?
It definitely can. Where anytime we enter any kind of vocation, there are goals in mind. And when we have those goals in mind, there are disciplines we have to take up to achieve that in all walks of life. So I understand you're pursuing a master's in computational biology right now. I'm not going to pretend like I know what that means, but what are those disciplines you need specifically for what you're pursuing?
Well, specifically computational biology, there is coding involved. And especially in today's world with AI starting to pop up, there is a sense of responsibility where instead of just pasting or putting all your tasks aside and throwing it into the AI, you need to take initiative to learn. Because otherwise, you yourself will not feel a sense of accomplishment or have that knowledge that is necessary.
It's far more tempting to just throw into AI, though.
It is.
That's where the sadhana lies. Puja Guruji has a beautiful quote. Discipline is the difference between what I want now versus what I want most. Discipline is the difference between what I want now versus what I want most. Instant gratification is the reason why my likes and dislikes are so strong right now. So, looking at the long run, seeing what's good for me later on, that's how I really build up discipline. When it comes to goal orientation, then, what are the right goals to have when it comes to sadhana, then? It's not about quantity. For example, when it comes to japa, I've gone through 5 malas today. I met my quota. Initially, that can be a goal. But is the goal intention behind that goal, is it simply to finish it? Or is it to see and observe how is my mind during this entire thing? That's where you see the difference that the sadhana is making.
So, in terms of to becoming a sadhaka, do you need to be initiated with a guru?
That's a tricky question to answer. Short answer, according to tradition, is yes, a guru is required for sadhana to be initiated into. Simply because each of us are built differently, therefore, we need specific sadhanas that help us grow. There's a beautiful story about Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Ji, one of the great gurus in our lineage. So there was a student that was out in the market buying some vegetables. He overheard someone saying some very nasty things about his guru, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Ji. Now, he's saying he's a madman. People worship him and say he's a great scholar and this and that. He just seems crazy going into samadhi at random times. He's no guru or anything. This student got enraged. How dare you do hani against my guru? How dare you do that? And he went and verbally gave him a tongue lashing at that moment. Then he came back home. Ramakrishna Paramhamsa Ji was visibly angry with the student, saying, "What is that I've taught you here? That I teach you to be peaceful, I teach you to be calm. When it's your turn to actually exhibit that outside as my student, he said something about me. What does that do to me at the end of the day? And here you are getting angry. That's completely uncalled for." A week later, another student goes out there to the vegetable market. He hears a similar gentleman saying terrible things about his guru. This man was a little bit more docile, this student. He stays quiet and comes back and reports to his guru. And Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Ji says, "What did you say to him?" And he says, "Nothing. I didn't say anything at all." And he says, "Are you serious? Someone out there is bashing your guru and you just stand there and not say anything? What's wrong with you?" People are confused. What is this conflicting approach right here? Turns out that first student was a hothead. The sadhana he had to inculcate was calmness of mind. Therefore, what he was told very clearly is you need to tamper down, you need to calm down and not have these outbursts. The other student was quite timid, indecisive, has trouble standing up for himself for anything he believes in, is like a doormat to people. That's something to grow out of them. Now, If not our guru, who else can know this about us? So it's often funny when two individuals compete for a kind of a sadhana and they say, well, you told me to do something, but you're telling them to do less. Meaning you're telling me that I have to skip 2 meals a day and have 1 meal a day, for instance. You're telling other people to eat 3 meals a day. What's wrong? It matters on the temperament and what that person needs. It's like saying that, I got a paper cut, so the doctor gives me a band-aid. You have a gash from a knife, therefore you get a full bandage. Me being angry, saying, why don't I get a full bandage right there? It's a paper cut. I need a band-aid, not a full bandage. So like that, the guru is able to know. The tricky part here is not everyone has access to a guru. That's important to see. And one thing I want to make very clear in the Chinmaya Mission Sampradaya, no Swamin or Brahmacharin is your guru. In Chinmaya Mission, we're very firm about that. We have one guru in our Sampradaya, that is Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmayanand. Everyone else is a vessel that is carrying his knowledge to the masses, to the people. He is our guru. So if we take him as our guru, then we find that he provides nuances when it comes to understanding sadhana as well. In what way? If we look at one of the most beautiful texts by Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharya Ji, Sadhana Panchakam, literally a text of 40 different sadhanas, spiritual practices that one should take up. Now, in the very end of that text, in the fifth shloka, one sadhana that's given is Ekante Sukhamasyatam. Ekante Sukhamasyatam means learn to be content in solitude, is a sadhana that's given. So practice solitude would be the sadhana. Now, it needs nuance. Puja Gurudev has a series of essays in a collection called Pursuit of Happiness, one of my favorite books. A very thin one, but very profound. In there, he has an essay called Solitude. He says, solitude is not something I should just rush into. If I go into solitude with a mind that is agitated already, a mind that is completely full of mala and insecurity and fear and rage and lust and all of these things, being completely alone with that mind, what's going to happen? Those qualities will rise even more. Solitude actually hurts me, is a hindrance to my growth at that point. He writes in there very clearly, the last paragraph is worth a read by everybody. He says in there, he defines religion. He says religion is how even and balanced and value-based your mind is. Even, balanced, and value-based. Solitude is a test of your religion, is what he says. So solitude is taken as a sadhana, no doubt. However, there's misconceptions abounding on that sadhana. This misconception that in solitude some revelation will come, that thinking deeply in there means some knowledge will strike. It doesn't work that way. And we know that solitude does not always make good decisions. For example, Aaron Rodgers was in solitude for about a week, right? And he came out and made the decision after a revelation to join the New York Jets. So clearly, good decisions don't come just from solitude. Now, all these jokes aside, but the nuances of solitude here, if not for Puja Gurudev explaining it that way, I wouldn't have been able to surmise all of this simply from Ekante Sukhamasyatam. So when sadhanas are given by those great acharyas, Mahatmas that we hold on to as our gurus, they're able to translate this for us. So holding on to Puja Gurudev as that guru, and through his writings and videos, and those who knew him can interpret what his works are, I'd say that's the way to stay connected to sadhana through a guru.
That's a beautiful story. And like you mentioned about solitude being a test of your religion, as people, we're all different. Like you were mentioning, we have different qualities. Some of us might be hot-headed, some of us might be timid. Is the approach to taking that test, should it be the same for everybody?
That's the thing where when it comes to taking that test, we need a good way to analyze. Because you're a scientist, at the end of the day, even if we have an approach to the test, when it comes to my own mind, which I can't be objective about all the time,
Exactly.
all right, there's a conflict of interest, so to speak, in assessing this mind. There has to be some kind of framework that's built in for us to look at. Thank God for Bhagavad Gita. Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the 17th and 18th chapters. When it comes to any facet of my life, there is a clear way of indicating where my mind is, and this is through understanding gunas. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, a threefold simple paradigm that we can use. For instance, when it comes to one common form of tapas, which is vak tapas, speech. So lowering the speech, making sure it's hitam, beneficial, priyam, loving, mitam, brief, with brevity. These are sadhanas that are given in Bhagavad Gita. Now, speech which is seen as tamasic is that which is vulgar, that which is basic, that which has no real relevance or any kind of growth for anybody. Speech which is rajasic causes lots of agitation for people. We can call it trolling in these days. That is speech that causes agitation with that intention of causing agitation, not for any
Instigating.
instigating, not having any kind of growth. Speech with a sattvic is cheerful, of the nature of knowledge, beneficial, kind, has some productivity associated with it. So when these markers are there, I can assess and see, looking at my own speech, where do I lie on the spectrum right here? Which guna am I identifying with? Now, the beauty is the same threefold structure can be looked at in so many different ways. It's cryptic at times as well. In 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Sukham, happiness is taken up for discussion in the most beautiful way, where we find that Rajasic Sukham is defined as happiness that starts out like nectar, but then becomes poison. Sattvic Sukham is that happiness that starts out like poison and then becomes like nectar.
Yep.
Which, as if Bhagavad Gita is not hard enough to understand as it is, this is another cryptic kind of thing that's put in there like this. What does it even mean? Let's look at it through an example then. We live in a world today where people say, I wish I could live back in the days where things were easier and everything. I thank God every day that I live in a day and age where we have Uber Eats. I don't even have to get in my car if I'm hungry at 3 in the morning. I can push some buttons in my phone
And it's instantly
and
there.
instantly. And if I don't want to go outside because I'm afraid, I can put the instruction of leave it at my door. I can wait for the car to go, open the door, and just look around, grab it, and then go eat. I live in that day and age. Not once a week or something is fine. If I order rich food like this, full of calories and fat contents and cheesecakes and stuff, and that's a daily thing because I can, it starts out like nectar. Literally, it tastes great, it feels good. What happens to my health after a while turns into poison, my idea of
Yep.
happiness. Now, sattvic sukham, like poison at first and later like nectar. Waking up early. That's the chick sadhana challenge going on in the
Yes.
West right now is actually waking up early. Srimati Gina G is doing a great job running that sadhana. When it comes to waking up early, say 5 a.m., the first 2 weeks that you have to do it, it's awful. Especially if you're in the Northeast in the wintertime. I've had my friends tell me, man, that is awful. The bed is the best place to be at that time. Who wants to wake up then? You keep doing it consistently, sticking with it. What do you find? You're more productive in the morning. You have time to settle yourself down and think about other things. You have time for spiritual practices to do that. You have the ability that because you have to wake up early in the morning, you go to bed sooner, your overall health improves. You find that you have more energy during the day, time to work out and do things like that. What began like poison at first becomes like nectar later on. That's the sattvic sukham. That takes that discipline to stick with sadhana in order for that sukham to come about.
So, like we talked about, sticking with waking up early, what about when it comes to habits? Like if you set a goal of exercising, I'm strongly going to go to the gym. It starts off strong for that month, but then it starts to fall off. How do we get back on track? Or how do we stay on track?
There's no reason to go it alone. Satsanga. Satsanga is not just when I sit on a stage boring you. That's not the only form of sat. That's what you guys know here in Chick Dallas. That's not the only form of satsanga, though. Satsang literally means sat, goodness, sangha in the company of good. Why not make it a tandem effort or a group effort where we hold each other accountable?
Hmm.
Not in a judgmental way of, oh, you didn't wake up at this time this morning, you're bad. No, not like that, but lovingly guiding and supporting each other. When I know there's accountability, so say I have to meet my friends for a meditation group or something, then you know that you're more likely to stick with it. Doing things alone, whether it's facing addiction, facing mental health issues, having to face grief and loss, anything like this going through it alone is far harder to have to deal with than doing it with someone else. Sadhana is no different then. Yes, our spiritual journey is individual, unique to every person. However, if we can lovingly support each other in this by being a good friend and helping people grow when they're genuine about it, there's no reason to go through it alone then.
Going through it alone, especially in today's society, we talked about a lot of inventions like Uber Eats revolutionized your meal prepping. You don't have to spend as much time. Another thing that came about today is social media. It's everywhere. Everybody, whether you want it or not, it's how we also communicate. So everything on social media is it's a snapshot, especially things like Instagram. It highlights brief moments that people want to share. It can be something that's an accomplishment, something that really excited someone. But when sometimes I find myself when I view if one of my friends went to a sports game, sometimes the thought of I wish I was there.
FOMO.
Exactly. How is it okay to have these thoughts?
Thing about thoughts is we cannot control when or what arises. To judge myself for a thought, if I do that, I am beating myself up all the time then. Because
Hmm.
there's far more negative thoughts than positive ones based on my state of mind. The sadhana here comes down to understanding that how social media affects me. What precautions do I take then? Is it that I kind of numb myself to it and just spend all my time there and make sure nothing hurts me ever again? Just like the flood of everything that's there? Or is it that I give myself a reality check and say that just as I have fun in some ways that others don't, some people have fun in ways that I don't. And you're right. It's often difficult when you find that some people are living a kind of life that you want to live, that not having that opportunity, there's a sadness that sets in, where it's about gratitude for what I do have. The
Hmm.
most basic way that's the greatest sadhana to have is being grateful for what I have, also understanding what is it that's hurting me. If someone who is a professional for 20 years goes and has fun and posts about it on social media, you don't feel as bad as a college student. If it's someone your age that's earning a lot more than you and then they're going out, that hurts a little bit more, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Simply because we're comparing ourselves to others, saying I should be in a certain place where they are right now. That shows what my priorities are. If my priorities are to improve as a person, look how many things change with that. The time I spend on social media diminishes. The value I give to it decreases as well. All these changes take place when I have to actually list out for myself what are my priorities. If I prioritize having a nice sports car over my own spiritual growth, that's fine. That is totally fine. Just be prepared. There's a few more lives coming my way if I do that, right?
Yes.
So it's what do I prioritize here?
And the concept of obviously it's easy in your head being aware, like we all want to, we hear about it, we listen, we say, oh, in my mind, I know what choice to make. But especially here, sometimes if you prioritize goals of getting that promotion, sometimes that can clash with spiritual growth. So in that situation of being in a better place spiritually versus being in a better place, maybe financially present, how do you kind of grasp and take control of that situation?
I run into that conundrum when spiritual growth is not clear for me on what that is.
Hmm.
What does it even mean, spiritual growth? We use these buzzwords and throw them around.
Exactly.
What does that mean from a definition that I get from somewhere, or what does it mean to me personally also? The equation that's unfinished here is this aspect of Ishvara, Paramatma, Bhagavan, whatever you call that divine in our Hinduism, that has to be there in my life. That element of Bhagavan must verily be there. That's something that we struggle with in this day and age, living so far away from the homeland, given the kind of technological ways we live with our skepticism as well. The most important relationship that we have in our lives is with Bhagavan, our Ishtadevata. Sanatana Dharma is unique in that even though it's a qualified monism that we go by in Advaita Vedanta, even then, there is no one God that we worship, but your own form of Ishvara that you find that attraction to, you worship that. We have the freedom to do that. It's very benevolent in that way. And there's a pantheon of so many inspirational, amazing forms of the divine that all take us to that higher. Given that that's the case, that should be the most important relationship I have. What am I finding, however? When it comes time to initiate students into Japa Sadhana, in Chinmaya Mission Dallas, for instance, when the students enter ninth grade, around Shivaratri time, we give them Japamalas and initiate them into the sadhana of Japa
Mhm.
with their Ishta Devata's mantra that they have to do. Now, we can ask a group of 20, who is your Ishta Devata? 15 of the kids don't know who their Ishta Devata is, meaning they've made it to the age of 15 or 16, never given it that thought. That is our failing as Hindus growing up outside the diaspora or even within India. That's our failing at that point. When that relationship has to be made much, much earlier on. Instead, that the reason why that happens is because of a lack of knowledge of what that Ishvara or Bhagavan is. We learn stories when we're younger, in those formative years of when we want to really make them see the religion as a fun thing. Where does that come later in life, however? It falls away. We focus on philosophy a lot. We neglect this aspect of Bhagavan as well. Now, think about it this way. My favorite athlete, I grew up in Dallas, Texas my whole life. I'm a huge basketball fan, so my favorite athlete is
Dirk Nowitzki.
Dirk Nowitzki. The moment you say that, I'm telling you, he was born in July 1978 in Würzburg, Germany. Played for the Dallas Mavericks from 1998 to 2019. 21 seasons with one team, which is a record. No one else has done it or will do it. For his career, 20.7 points per game. He also had 7.5 rebounds per game and 2.4 assists per game. When you shoot like that, who has to pass, right?
Mhm.
He has all of that very much well set. Then he is a 14-time All-Star, 12-time All-NBA, 2006 three-point shooting champion, 2007 League MVP, 2011 Finals MVP, 2023 Basketball Hall of Fame inductee. I didn't have to look at anything. I just rattled that off. Do I know that much about my Ishtadevata? That's what I have to ask myself. This is about an athlete that I'll probably never meet, which I have no connection to beyond being a fan. I know so much. That Bhagavan, who I'm supposed to be related to the most, do I even know a quarter of that about my favorite form of Bhagavan? Does that come to my mind at all? Without that connection, sadhana becomes an impossibility. Because when it comes to prioritization, having something tangible I can hold on to is what gives me priority. If Bhagavan is a nameless, faceless entity that exists for me somewhere far out there, is not something in my heart, there's no way I can connect.
Then where where can we have these conversations? Because we talk about how at that age the knowledge isn't there. Then where do you find that knowledge?
This knowledge simply has to come from understanding Shastra the right way. Because in the name of sadhana, there are some terrible things that some people can do. You look at Srimad Bhagavad Gita again. Tapasya, which is austerities, is also split into this framework of tamas, rajas, and sattva. Tamasic sadhanas, or tapasyas, austerities, are those which are not ordained by Shastra. For example, Shastra, there it may give a recommendation of on Ekadashi fast. Okay, that comes once every fortnight or so. Instead, I say, okay, Monday I fast for Bhagavan Shiva. Tuesday I fast for Hanumanji. Wednesdays for Devi. Thursday I fast for my guru. Friday I fast for another form of Devi. Saturday I fast for Surya Bhagavan. And Sunday I fast for something else. You're hurting your body at the end of the day. When is it that you eat if you're fasting every day for something? Which means Shastra doesn't recommend that ever.
Mhm.
So taking it on and just going overboard with it, that's one way of knowing if it's hurting me and hurting my growth physically and mentally, that's not a sadhana to go through. Now, Rajasic tapas then. Rajasic tapas is that which is meant to show off to people, right? Where I do certain things and I have to talk about it because if I don't talk about it, how does anyone know that I'm doing it? It's like people who do CrossFit. How do you know someone's doing CrossFit?
I mean, you'll see it
They'll tell
either.
you.
They'll tell you,
Whether
you'll
you
see it.
ask them or not, they'll tell you.
Hmm.
Okay? It's like that, where unless people know that I'm doing a sadhana, am I actually doing it? That's Rajasic at that point, simply to show off to other people. Sattvic tapas is that which is done for my own growth. I don't make a big deal of it, trying to blow up my ego. And I do it within moderation so that I know how it's affecting me and I'm not going overboard with it.
Showing off is kind of the extreme, right? You show off to get a sense of like accomplishment, that satisfaction within you. Is it wrong to feel satisfaction then when you're doing sadhana?
Early stages, it's not wrong at all. If it's something that's making you feel good, you feel closer to Bhagavan, and you're proud of yourself for putting in that effort, what's wrong with feeling good about it?
Hmm.
It's when you turn into this being that says, okay, I'm better than everybody else. You wake up at 6 a.m., I wake up at 5 a.m. That's my sadhana. I do so much. One round of japa you do once a week. Come on, child. I do like that in my sleep once a day. If that's the attitude that I take up with it, that it builds a superiority in me, the irony is it's doing the opposite of what it should do.
Then, along with doing sadhana, we want to cleanse distractions or kind of just reduce the noise. For me personally, like when I work, I remove all the clutter on my desk. So if I have my phone, I turn it face down, put it away, and I like to kind of show my work on pen and paper. Because if I'm on computer, I usually just get distracted by all the ads, whatever comes up. Is there any tips or something that works for you, like a small step?
I derive everything from Puji Gurudev. And one example he gave on this to hold on to sadhana despite distractions is we may forget or neglect to do our sadhana in the morning.
Hmm.
We'll never miss our morning cup of coffee. That's something that's non-negotiable for us. Why not have a system where I don't have that cup of coffee unless I've done my japa, for instance, if that's a sadhana that I've taken up? I don't have my cup of coffee until I've done that japa. I'm holding myself accountable that way. Where the distractions that arise for other things and everything, those goodies are contingent on have I done my sadhana. Now, you can say, hey, that's a childish thing to do. That's what we do with children, right? If you eat all your vegetables, then well, you can have a piece of cake or something. This mind is nothing but a child. I may be 32 years old and a brahmachari and all that. My mind is still a child's mind. I need to tame that thing, and if there's imaginary carrots I have to give myself to do that, then so be it. If that's the way I have to deal with this mind.
That's a very simple but very effective message. Then talking about simplicity in our world right now, there's a ton of like everything is digital, everything is fast paced. We talked about feeling good about yourself. What does simple living look like now?
Simple living, if it's purely physically based on how much I have and what I do, it's really hard to gauge that way. Simple living can be gauged by how much of a burden do I feel from the world around me? Or what is my stress level, in fact? Is it that I have a generally happy disposition and there are tough times? Or is it that there are so many tough times, every now and then, surprisingly, rarely, accidentally, I find a moment of happiness and clarity? Where am I in all of this? So simplicity comes down to how much worry do I have about things in my mind? Where that's different for every person. There isn't a level of optimal stress that has to be there. If I don't give it my all at work, because hey, if I lose my job, at least I have a safety net of a trust fund and stuff like that, I won't go for it then, right? So it's an optimal level of stress that has to be there to bring out my best. Let that be an opportunity for sadhana. That these stressful situations, until I get into a sadhana track, those things can be helped. But then when we talk to chicks often, and we make that recommendation of why not japa, puja, they say, look, that's impractical. I just, that doesn't work for me. I don't have time for it. We have to make time for sadhana. A simple life is one where I can make time for sadhana. If my life is so complicated that I can't spend that half an hour a day, I have to rethink my priorities or my commitments. Something has to change for me to accommodate that.
But when it comes to stress, for example, there are scenarios like I'm talking about that eventually you can, a good amount of stress is helps you kind of fix that desire. But there's also stress where we seek results. And even if that goal isn't attained, if that goal isn't reached, that desire isn't reached, we feel that it's a failure. Like if the goal we set out for the sadhana or we're practicing sadhana, if we don't feel that effect, what would you say about someone saying it's a failure then?
Whenever we set a goal and we assess failure or success, what is the intention behind that goal? Say we have a common goal, running a marathon, okay? Your reason for doing it is you get fit while you're doing it. And it's not about the time of what your marathon is. You get fit doing it. If you can finish it, you feel a sense of accomplishment and you feel like you've disciplined yourself in the whole training process and everything. I run the same marathon with you. My purpose of doing it is so I can post that picture with the bib and the medal on my social media and I can have people talk about how great I am for doing it, right? And I can talk about it to other people. We're doing the same exact action. Our intentions cannot be more apart. Now, if we weren't to finish the race, both of us. All right. We crash out at 25 instead of 26.1,
Mhm.
right? At that point, 26.2, I'm sorry. If we come up a mile short and we both quit, you wouldn't feel as bad. The point you did it for is fitness.
Mhm.
You still achieved that. Whether you ran that last mile or not, you still achieved your goals of being more fit, being more disciplined. You got that done. You succeeded. Here I am wanting attention for it. I didn't get what I wanted there. My intention was wrong. That's what made me a failure or successful at that point. Now, there's a beautiful video you have to watch of Puja Gurudev talking about striving for a goal,
Mhm.
where he says, always choose a goal that you know you'll never reach. That's so impractical. Choosing a goal that you can't reach, so impractical. Gurudev says it himself. Isn't that
Mhm.
impractical? Don't say it's impractical. Reaching the goal is not the goal. Striving to reach the goal is the goal because that's where the growth happens.
So it's the progress, the
It's the
process.
process. It's the process right
Mhm.
there. It's the journey, not simply the destination.
Mhm.
And he said that in chapter 2 of Gita when he was speaking on that. So I believe now, is it time to take questions from our friends? Let's do it. So, by the way, I'm helped here, of course, by Arjun who's asking me questions, and Guha in Chick Dallas, he's helping us with the tech. Those things that I can't do, Guha's doing for me. So thank you to both of you for your help.
Of course. So we have one question from,
How many do we have on right now?
have about 25.
Okay.
Yeah. We have one question that was sent in the chat. The question is there a quantitative test I can take to determine where I stand in my spiritual evolution and where I have the biggest gap and thus which sadhana should I take up next?
Is there a quantitative test to see where I am in my spiritual evolution? There is no such quantitative test for two reasons. One, being completely objective with my own mind is nearly impossible to do. I will have biases of reasons to cover up why my mind is a certain way, or I'll find excuses, or I'm too hard on myself sometimes. That's one reason. The other thing is this mind is so ever changing that one situation can look so different to me at different times. That which I find as beneficial at one point can seem burdensome the next. That role that I find myself at one point can seem enjoyable at first. It can seem quite bad for my growth in other ways. So, no such quantitative test, especially when it's dealing with my own mind. This is why the guru is so important here. Or at least someone who is learned, someone who can analyze what I'm going through objectively without judgment, and they have a way of helping me.
There are currently no other questions. You tell them to come off mute too.
Yes. So you can come off mute. You can raise your hand. They're using the raise your hand mechanism. Gua can unmute you, and then you can ask your question out loud if you'd like. That's also an option.
I have a question, Harvey.
Sure.
So is it ever too late to start sadhana? Like we're all on different time frames. Is there, is it ever too late? Is it too early?
So when we say too late, for instance, is it too late? We're saying that we want to start later, is what it is.
Mhm.
Right? And if this relationship with Bhagavan has to be built, because sadhana, I'm boiling down to one very simple thing is my relationship with Bhagavan. I'm not even talking about getting rid of likes and all of that will come. Let me increase this relationship that I have and strengthen that with Bhagavan. Why would I ever want to start that later than right now if I know that's the priority? As far as too early, there's never a time that's too early. Look at our Hindu system of the way we are. Samskaras, or milestones or sacraments that we have to observe. From the moment the child is in the garbha, in the womb, there are these sacraments that are done for the benefit of that child. When the child is born, annaprashana, taking solid food for the first time, whether it's the practice of akshara abhyasa, learning letters and getting involved in education, upanayana, the sacred thread initiation of Gayatri Japa, all of these are done at such a young age. You're telling me that a 5 to 8 year old kid understands the meaning of Gayatri Mantra, but they chant it because chanting it so much sharpens that intellect. When they're ready to learn what the meaning is, by then they already have a grasp of what it is, and they're already seeing the benefits of it. We're in the generation now where prove to me this works and then I'll try it. Sadhana does not work that way. The catch-22 is until I put myself into it, I won't see the benefit. And if I don't start till I see the benefit, I'm out of luck right there.
Similar to how in our assembly we do Guru Stotram. We start obviously kindergartners and high schoolers, there's a different level of understanding, but the same process, the same intent is there.
Which is why I beseech all our families, bring your kids to our pujas that we do. On purpose, we do 10 to 12 pujas a year, each of which is on the day according to the Hindu calendar. Whether that be a Tuesday or a Wednesday, we do it on that day simply because that's the niyama. That's the right way to do it. Now, I see the same adults at the puja every single time. Why don't you bring your little kids? Oh, they don't want to come. I'm waiting for them to be ready to come. So you never expose your kid to puja their whole life. When they're in 10th grade, they wake up one day, Mom, I'm ready to go to puja today. If you're waiting for that, I'm sorry, that's naive. Bring them. You're the parent, you bring them, make them come, make them sit for it. When that becomes a practice that's non-negotiable, we find that that's how they get ingrained into a life of sadhana. There's one more question.
Yeah, we have a few more questions.
Sure.
So, first one is Hari Om Hariji.
Hari Om.
I do a daily sadhana every morning as a way to calm myself at work. However, I find myself not fully being present and feel it is difficult to find motivation to work extremely hard and feel motivated by the work I'm doing, but I know it's the right thing to do. How do I navigate this and have better mindset and never feel negative about it?
Better to feel mechanical and still responsibly do that sadhana rather than gauge my motivation, say I'm unmotivated, and desist from doing it. It's about consistency. Will japa feel terrible at times where I feel like, man, there's so much going on. I thought about everything but Bhagavan in the mantra while I was repeating it. That can happen sometimes. But putting my mind in there is what makes that happen. Do you played an instrument, saxophone, right?
Yeah.
Was it ever painful in the beginning when you played it? Is it heavy?
It's heavy, and we have morning rehearsals outside. So you can imagine with Texas weather, whether it's below freezing, whether it's scorching hot, you're there.
I started with violin. I played for 6 years. The first few days, playing like this, that hurts everyone's wrist. And they asked, can we go to the nurse's office? Our teacher would just laugh. They've seen so many kids learn, right? They're like, you're fine. What starts out like that as a painful thing then, if you don't practice, it will hurt again the next time you try. You practice consistently, it's like nothing, muscle memory, it doesn't hurt anymore. Sadhana is the same way. That consistency, even if it's mechanical, will bear a fruit because I'm making that impression of getting used to it. That makes it easier when I am motivated.
Next question. With all the negativities around, especially now, how can we keep focusing on our sadhana without getting affected?
With all the negativities around, Puja Gurudev has a beautiful essay. It's called The Most Positive Sadhana, where one thing he starts with in that essay is, there is no such thing as a negative sadhana, meaning I can never deliberately not think about something. Arjun's been annoying me, so I say I will not think about Arjun. So I tell myself 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I will not think about Arjun. Thought about him. God, it's not going to work that way. The best way is to substitute that thought with a positive thought. Whenever that negative thought arises, substitute with positivity. If it's that FOMO, like you mentioned, seeing social media, man, let's be grateful for all the things that I have. I was born with 10 fingers, 10 toes, 2 eyes, and a nose and a mouth. 2 ears, I have my health. I have the opportunity to get educated. I have a loving family around me. All of these things of gratitude, let that replace that thought of FOMO or feeling less than. You see what wonders it does right there. So even when these bad thoughts arise and I feel sadhana is not a possibility because of that, this replacement method is an early way to still keep me going.
Next one. Sometimes I lose motivation to achieve my goals, and for a certain period of time, it's hard to convince myself to keep working towards them. Where can we find motivation when our own goals don't feel worth it?
Are my goals lofty enough in the first place? Are they goals that actually lead to my evolution and my growth? I'm in that sports mode right now because of what I said before.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example then. 2011, Dirk Nowitzki and the Mavericks are battling the villains, super villains of NBA history, the Heatles, right? LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. One game, Dirk had a bad game in game 2 or 3 because he had the flu and he was coughing and things. So Wade and LeBron decided to imitate his cough, making fun of it, and they were coughing for the cameras and stuff. So in the middle of the finals, they ask Nowitzki, the press, watching them mock your illness and your cough, does that give you extra motivation to go and achieve your goal of winning a title? He said, look, that's a goal I've had for so long. It is the one goal that I have. It's really important to me. If I need extra motivation at this point in the middle of the finals, there's something wrong here. I don't care about the noise right there. Similarly, what is the tenor of the goals that I have? If they're so focused on, I want to impress this person, make them think this way of me, is that a worthy goal to have in the first place? First of all, that's not contingent on just me. It's contingent on how someone else will feel, which has nothing to do with what I can control in the first place, no matter how much I work. Secondly, it's what does growth look like in that? Even if I achieve it, is that actual growth? Now, if I tell myself, okay, it is sadhana reaches an optimal level or bust, in that I should be able to sit and do 5 rounds of 108 times, Om Shri Krishnaya Namaha. If I can't sit and do that within 6 months, I'm a failure. Again, is that a sadhana-based goal? Yes. Is it a noble goal? Yes. Is it a goal that will help me calm my mind? Yes. But not achieving that, even if I put forth genuine effort, won't I still grow in that process? So again, are the nature of my goals where even if I don't achieve it, will I still make progress in that path? So instead of beating myself up for not reaching my goals, do I have the right goals in the first place?
Next one. If I should take up just 3 sadhanas daily, which 3 would you recommend?
Depends on the temperament, but perhaps if we're looking at this from the framework of my equipments are, notice I didn't say I am, my equipments are my body, mind, and intellect. Why not a sadhana for each one of those? At the body level, it can be something like getting fresh air and exercise daily with a component of worship of Bhagwan. Simple as offering the 108 names of Gurudev at his altar. That does wonders, okay? Each name, if you look it up, the names of Puja Gurudev, they're inspiring for so much. Everything from Om Shantai Namaha, the one who's at peace, to Vinoda Priyaya Namaha, the one who loves good humor. We can inculcate every single one of these qualities in ourselves. So at the physical level, even offering those 108 names at the altar of Gurudev, even if you don't have flowers, just chant them in front of his photo, you see what the effect is. Then that's the body level. Mental level, then, is there some kind of chanting I can do? Something on a daily basis of my favorite form of Bhagavan. You look at Bhagavan Sri Adi Shankaracharyaji's compendium, 95 or so stotras he's written on so many different devatas. Take a stotra and chant it. Shiva, Bhagavan Shiva is my Ishtadevata. The Shiva Panchakshara Stotram, Nagendraharaya Trilochanaya. Every day. It'll take me 5 minutes to do. See how that elevates my mind. At the intellectual level, dig deeper into some kind of Shastra. What questions do I have from the latest Chik Satsang that I attended? Reading Puja Gurudev's Gita commentary. I have this here for a reason. This is my lifeline right here. Anytime I open it, I learn something new each and every time. The words are the same. They've been the same since the 50s when he wrote this. But based on the temperament of my mind, I learn something new every time I go through that. How proud I am that our guru is the one that wrote it in English like this, accessible to all, in a way that helps the individual grow, family units grow, entire society grow as well. So read a passage, 2 shlokas explanation each day, ponder over it. I'd say those are 3 great sadhanas at the body, mind, and intellect level.
Okay. Next one. Hariom. Maybe I misunderstand, but I believe the ultimate goal of us doing sadhana and resulting self-purification is to realize oneness with Brahman. But isn't this a corrupted intention since we are doing this to realize a better stature for ourselves? How can we do sadhana with this goal without trying to fulfill a selfish goal?
I disagree with one part of the question I find faulty. It's this aspect of looking for a higher stature for ourselves. Okay. If you had a mask on that you're wearing, okay, Halloween's coming up in a month.
Yep.
You're wearing a mask and you look in the mirror and you're like, where's Arjun? Is what you're asking yourself. You look everywhere. You ask the people around you, they can't tell you you're wearing that mask. You look in all types of mirrors, it won't help you because you're wearing that mask. Until you remove that mask, then you know I was Arjun this entire time. How are you taking yourself to a different stature if you were that the entire time and only a mask came off? Same thing here. It's never that I was separate from Brahman and then became one with Brahman. That doesn't work that way. My identity was and is and will be Sat, Chit, Ananda. Removing that ignorance reveals what I've been this entire time. So I'm not changing my stature in any way right here. And on the topic of selfishness, then, one question that comes up is, we're told to be desireless, yet mumukshutvam is that yearning or burning desire for liberation. Is that not a desire? Definitions matter right here. Our entire tradition as Hindus is predicated on what are our definitions. Definition of a desire is that which bloats this individuality or ego, namely this body, mind, intellect. Desire for liberation is cutting that entire BMI away. Where's the question of it being a desire then? Where's the question of selfishness at that point then? I'm eradicating selfishness in this process. Sadhana is that vehicle by which I purify this mind to get to that point. Good pointed question. I loved it.
Okay, I think this next one is in response to a previous answer
Nice.
you gave. It says, Hariji, this substitution feels like, open quote, grapes are sour, I do not want it, end quote. Where am I off?
I should have elucidated this more. So that's my fault that I didn't do that. I'll do it at this point. Thank you for the question then. When it comes to that substitution, it can often feel like simple replacement theory or getting away from something and having an aversion to it, which is strengthening a dislike, which is not what we want to do with sadhana. This is where the gunas come into play again. The entire point of spiritual progress is seeing, am I rising from tamas to rajas to sattva? Now look at this. Say that I have a tamasic quality like smoking a cigarette. Okay. So then I start wearing the nicotine patch, and that still frustrates me. For anyone that's tried to quit smoking, they tell me that it is really hard to do. It is just very intensely hard. So when it comes to, say, trying to quit smoking, you start going on runs, getting fresh air, getting endorphins into your system. That's nothing but a rise from tamas to rajas. Is it a replacement? Yes. But it's higher up on that guna pyramid. Therefore, I'm getting closer to sattva because I'm doing something rajasic. Now look at it this way. I have an anger problem. So when my boss asks me stupid questions like, do you have that assignment done? Or what is the status on this project? Then you feel like, oh, I want to get enraged and give him one or something like that. So you can't do that because you'll lose your job. So you keep a punching bag at your home and you do upasana of your boss, where you see your boss in that punching bag and you go to town. How is that progress? Rajasic intention I had. I'm doing something, I'm staying in the same plane of Rajas right here. I'm not rising to sattva in any way. So replacement theory does not work if it's remaining in that same guna. If I'm rising within the gunas as I replace with different activities, then it won't simply be grapes are sour, I won't go for it. It's how can I elevate my mind going through the gunas then? And that gunas explanation is profusely given in Srimad Bhagavad Gita.
Next one's interesting. With the rise of AI, it is easy to get things done without using much of our brain / thinking much. Hence, we feel less accomplished. From a spiritual standpoint, how would you suggest we engage with AI in a responsible manner while also not taking too long to get things done?
again, is it done in a way that's still honest to what I have to do? Am I still growing through that process? I use AI regularly. I love to make workshops for high school students and for our chick members, different ways of activities and things. Used to be where for a single activity, from my brainstorming portion of like 30 minutes to putting it to paper and then cutting things away that I extraneous things, putting it in a nice order, that takes about another 30 minutes. Another 30 minutes to put out and fairly and cleanly. Another 30 minutes to find any mistakes or anything, and then finally deploy it. That's 2 hours for a workshop. Now, what am I able to do this past year? Using artificial intelligence, I'm able to find the parameters. I still come up with what the topic is, but for instance, if it's an activity that requires 20 scenarios, cards that students have to draw and then act out, instead of me spending another half hour thinking up those 20 scenarios, I say, give me 20 scenarios and it'll give it to me in like an instant. Then I can go through and take what I want. My workshop planning time has gone from 2 hours to about 45 minutes. My output has increased a lot. And you could say Brahmachari is getting lazy. He's doing less on his own. He wasn't brilliant to begin with, but now he's totally artificially intelligent. At the same time, I see that I'm still able to stay in my mode of service in working because what I'm doing is making these ideas palatable for young adults. I'm still able to do that in a much more efficient way. My brainstorming and ideas are still making their way into the final product, yet I'm much more efficient. So, am I compromising on what my duty is? I don't think so. That's the test right there. Am I compromising on my duty? And am I not growing because of this? If so, it's a hindrance, but the thinking part is still valid right there. We do not think very often. At work, how challenged are we to think? We just do robotic things again and again. This spiritual knowledge is the final frontier where we actually have an impetus to have to think. Never let this go. Any more questions coming in?
Not at the moment.
All right, well, it's 8:27 now, so we will conclude. So wherever you joined from, my heartiest pranams to all of you. And thank you again to Arjun and to Guha for helping me facilitate this. And in closing, I'd like to say Bhagavad Gita is a manual not just for living, but that manual that can show us what our true potential is. One of my most prized possessions that I have is a similar copy, like this red copy of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And since 2013, about how many years ago is that? Almost
What?
11, 12 years
12
ago.
years ago.
I've had various sannyasis in our mission sign that for me. And they've written some of the most beautiful things. One sannyasi in our mission wrote, prescription RX, 2 shlokas per day. He wrote in there. One other wrote, let his song flow through you, is what she wrote in there. One Swamini Amma. One wrote, read Gita daily. Yet another wrote, understand and appreciate your own biography, is what he wrote in there. So these are the messages that our Swamins in our mission, what they think of what this Gita is. They fervently hold on to it. They've progressed so much. So that's my inspiration right there. When I open that up and I see all of these quotes, that this study is imperative. So this is one small initiative we're doing as Global Chick to spread this relevance of Gita and why it's so important. Please see it for the amazing guide and friend that it is. So with that, lots of love to you and all your families. Hariom, everybody.